Welcome back, students. This is Managerial Accounting lesson number 6, and you will find this video and the script for it published in your syllabus. Today we cover Chapter 8, Flexible Budgets. In the previous chapter, we studied the planning budget and the basic budget concept. This particular budget was static. Once the period begins, rarely do the actual activity levels equal those that were planned in the original budget. As a result, both revenues and costs will usually vary from those projected in the planning budget. These fluctuations are called variances, and they can be classed as either favorable or unfavorable. For instance, if revenue is greater than planned, that would be considered a favorable variance. On the other hand, if an expense was greater than planned, that would be unfavorable. By comparing the actual cost to what would have been the cost associated with the actual level of activity that took place, we can identify the causes of these variances. This is important because it is difficult to interpret variances between the planning budget and the actual costs unless we adjust for the change in activity levels. To illustrate this, we read the story of Rick's hairstyling in Exhibits 8.2 through 8.7. Beginning with the static planning budget, we first compare the planned results versus the actual. Next, we prepare a new flexible budget that reflects what revenues and costs should have been if the projected level of activity of customers for the month was what actually took place. When we compare this flexible budget with the actual results, we get a much more accurate picture of the revenue and spending variances as shown in Exhibit 8.6. We wrap up this part of the discussion by comparing a budget with a single cost driver to one with multiple cost drivers. And the results of this are shown in Figure 8.7. This concludes the first part of the chapter. In the second part, we look at standard costs of direct labor and materials, as well as variable overhead costs. Using these various standards, we can calculate the efficiency of labor, of materials, and of variable overhead usage. This process of setting standards for performance is called benchmarking. Usually it is based on prior experience of the firm itself. We measure both price standards and quantity standards of all direct costs. This distinction is important because variances in price are usually due to different causes than variances in quantity used. Exhibit 8.10 points out some terminology distinctions that could prove confusing if you don't read this section. The chapter concludes by showing how managers use the various efficiency variances to improve operations. Be sure to complete all of the discussion questions. I've carefully gone over them and changed the requirements so that it is easier to understand, as well as prepare yourself for the quiz by making sure you're familiar particularly with all of the vocabulary. At this time, we have only 2 lessons remaining. I recommend that you note any missing assignments in your gradebook. It would be wise to bring these to my attention with a brief note. Incomplete discussion questions can be completed for partial credit. Quizzes can only be taken once, but if you've missed taking a quiz, I can open it for a few days so that you can make up the score. Note that the final exam is due Sunday night following the last class on a Monday. There will be no opportunity after this to make up missing scores. You have put in a good effort this term. The study of costs is central to the daily operation of every business. As you pursue your career in business, You will use the knowledge and experience from this and other classes, no matter what part of the business you may be directly working with. As a knowledge worker, as described by the late, great Professor Peter Drucker, your value to the team lies in your ability to communicate with the other team members, each with their own specialized training and experiences. Although you may not become a managerial accountant, you will be called on to read and analyze their reports and recommendations. The greater your understanding of the accounting process, the more effective you will be in making business decisions. Should you decide to become an accountant, you will have a measure of job security that is unusual in the business world. Your skills are adaptable to every type of business because the principles are the same no matter what the company makes or sells. If you are diligent, you will have an excellent opportunity to rise to the highest levels of management because of your accounting background. Should you pursue accounting outside the United States, you will find that your work in another country will be the same as you prepared for here. The terminology will vary and the laws will vary, but the accounting principles are like mathematics. Everyone uses the same systems, the same numbers worldwide. Finally, I ask that you remember that everyone you will ever meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind to everyone, especially the difficult people you encounter. As my great mentor, Charlie Tremendous Jones, used to say, nobody is a failure until they start to blame others. Goodbye, and we'll see you in class.